Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code NEST. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show, trade deadline show. And this is attempt number 3 on my end to see if my computer is either coughing off the last of its mortar coil or if I just need to troubleshoot here and get this figured out. So hopefully we're coming through okay right now. And we are able to come through live, going through a little bit of a different system here. And so hopefully this will make a bit of a difference. But we've got our NFL trade deadline fully kicked off here today. This is always a moment of high intrigue at this time of season, like you get right around the time of draft and just on the day of the draft or free agency the day of. This has kind of become similar because John Schneider has tended to be willing to go out there and jump on into these waters at this time of year. He has said, and I believe him when he says this, that this is a 365 situation for him and that I'm not looking to add to the roster just merely in the off season or into free agency. But at all times of year, when I can add onto this roster, I will be looking to do so. And the Seahawks, continuing on with that point, continued on with that today in that long lineage of trades from Dwayne Brown to Quandre Diggs to Carlos Dunlap. Today you add Rashid Shaheed into the mix. And this is one of the more heftier, I would say, giving up of capital. You have a 7th for Dunlap. You have a 5th for Quandre Diggs. Now, he did have to give up a little bit more for Dwayne Brown with the 2nd and the 3rd. It's a little more akin to that, I guess, or not as much of that. So somewhere in between. And the reasons for this, I think, are a multitude of spots we can kind of go to on this. But I think this does speak to John's confidence in where this team is going to be going and, the direction of where they're headed this upcoming season and what the addition of a Shaheed could do. There is certainly some wonder about what this might mean for Cooper Kupp and some of the other injuries there. Now, Kupp's more of a slot. Shaheed's not as much of a slot. So it's not exactly a like-for-like kind of situation, but all the same, you start to wonder with also Derek Young's injury in there as well, as maybe there's a little bit of some concern there from the Hawks on their perspective of this. I think in looking at the Seattle fandom, there seems to be not a lot of upset about this one. And I think first, maybe the good part of this to do or to go to is to take a look at a little bit of what this guy brings to play and why he's doing this. If you caught this on the earlier show and you're hearing this for a second time, I'm sorry about that. But I do want to cover this part of this with Rashid, as this is his PFF grade. You can see here to my left side for the 4-year career he's had since coming in 2022 as an undrafted guy, Weber State Wildcats, that burgeoning program out there. And he came out there and he made instant impact on this New Orleans Saints team. He was, this is the rushing stuff. So let's get to the receiving. He came right out the gate with 488 receiving yards in 2022. You see on that far left column, which indicates the grade there. And I know it's hard to see maybe on some phones here, but I'll try to read it out. You have him with an 80 grade initially overall offensively, 69, 69, and 66.9. Yeah. This last season or this current year, and he's playing on a Saints team right now, offensively speaking, that's really kind of searching for it a bit. And so I think everybody across the board on that, probably Saints offense, is struggling to find their optimum production. But he's been a very good receiver. He's a deep threat. He's a burner. He's a guy that also, I think, part of the reason you're willing to give a little bit of this draft compensation up, which might make a few Hawk fans go, ooh, is the fact that he has got the familiarity with Clint Kubiak's scheme. And he gets into here and he's going to know the terminology. He's going to hit the ground running. He's going to know exactly the adjustments you need to make, side adjustments, route adjustments, option route adjustments. He should be pretty good with it out of the gate. And he's also coming in with a particular set of skills. And those skills are that this man gets deep. And not just that he is known for getting a deep guy. He's a fairly complete receiver around this. But he's a guy known for getting deep and being one of the better in the NFL in that kind of component of things. And then he was at his best as a deep guy within Clint Kubiak's system. When you look at what he did, granted, now this is a little bit of a sample size because he only played the 6 games with Clint Kubiak in that year before he went down with an injury. So these are stats that are on their 6 games, but they're pretty eye-popping numbers as he was on pace to have his best year of his career under Clint Kubiak. And then you can see if you look over here, and it's going to be hard because I know the screen's a little bit shrunken down for you guys to see, especially if you're on a phone right now. The column that I was talking a little bit about earlier before our stream went down was the ADOT, average depth of target. How deep are you getting down the field to where I'm targeting you? And with him, of course, the deeper, the better in a lot of respects. That's where he's going to make a lot of his money, so to speak. But what you do notice with him, he's always pretty good on this, 11.6 in his first year. That's good depth for a receiver. That's hardy. You've got a 14.6 in year 2. It's going up, man. That's elite kind of area of things. And then he's at 18.1 last year under Kubiak in that 6 games. So Kubiak wasn't just utilizing this guy, but utilizing him to the nth degree. He sees this burn. He goes, I know what to do with you. I know how you can help out this offense. And he's going to be able to fit him in very nicely into the run of things here. As you can also notice here in 2025, the average depth of target's gone down to 11. And that just speaks to a little bit of the fact that the New Orleans Saints cannot pass protect, and they don't have the quarterback talent to push the ball down the football field. Derek Carr is not the greatest at the end where he was in his career, but I do think even at that point was still better than what you had in Rattler and better than what you have in Tyler Shock. And so you're getting a good player here. You're getting a guy that should come ready-made to go. You get the reinforcement on the injury situation that you're worried a little bit about. We don't know the nature of Cooper Kupp's heel injury. We don't know if Tariq Young might be out. Maybe they feel like Cooper Kupp's going to come back, no doubt about it, but then they're looking at it going, but then we only got Torrey Horton, Bobo, and Tariq Young, and Bobo's beat up too. So some of this comes back to, again, I don't think it's a Kupp replacement. I don't think that this is necessarily an indicator of them being unsure that Kupp's going to be able to come back. I think it is a little bit just more of reinforcing into that depth a bit. And as far as the 4th and the 5th round pick goes, because this is the one spot that some fans have had a little bit of a measure of, I can get it. It is a lot to give up. It is a rental move. And this kind of rental move could be that you don't get the returns back. You end up throwing these couple of picks away for kind of nothing, just a little bit there. I can get this thinking just a tiny bit, but also let's put the perspective of where things are at in place for not just where the Hawk team is at, but where they're going to be at in this upcoming draft. I don't know if any of you guys have heard, and I've just started to dip my toe into the waters of looking at some of the prospects and doing some evaluations. But the early word on the scene in this draft is that it is not a particularly strong draft. We're now fully removed from those COVID years that had kind of, in some ways, not artificially, but helped to definitely boost up some of those draft classes through those years, with a lot of those kids getting the extra year of eligibility. And that's not happening anymore. These guys coming out now are going to be more pure. And what you're hearing from everyone that I know and that I've heard from looking at this draft class has come back again saying, overall, not a very strong draft class. Are there some positions that are a little bit better than others that you can actually find some quality in? Yeah, there is within that. But it may not be one we might find that we come to day 3 and there's just an avalanche of really good guys there to go pull from. The other part of this is how strong you've made this team in recent years. Remembering, going back for 3 years, there's a lot of extra picks in those seasons of those draft classes. And what that has led to, with you spending your money in good spots that's paying off too, with Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones and some of those guys that you've gone for there as well, is you have a roster that doesn't need as many holes to be filled. I mean, after this, for instance, if you brought back Rasheed, if you could, on a contract after this, you ain't going to need another receiver into next year's draft. That's completely off the board. And you all know you're already, for the most part, taking care of it. Left tackle, right tackle, left guard. You know, your quarterback set, couple deep. Your defensive line, pretty good. Got a couple edges returning next year, even with Boye Maffe's leaving. You still got 3 coming back next year. And yeah, you might lose a Rick Woolen, you might lose a Josh Joe, but Witherspoon's still here. Eamon Wari's still here. Love is going to still be in the mix on things. Tyrese Knight's still under contract. And so, yeah, you could use picks here and there, but you got guys like Riley Mills that are going to come back next year and be kind of like a bonus pick. I think he sits on the IR all year, and that's a top 50 player. And how he was rated by the Hawks, I think he probably ends up coming back. That's kind of like an additional pick there. So I don't have as much of an issue into day 3 picks being moved at the trade deadline, especially for a player that you're getting that you know can bring quantitative impact here. You know what he can do. If he's just a one-trick pony, he's going to do that one trick really, really well. Looking at the trade deadline today, I wanted to just kind of poke out a little bit more on a few of what we saw as far as some of the other moves and kind of react to just a little bit of that, because I thought that there was some interesting items today. Why can't I add him? I want to add. There we go. So we got Draymond Jones, former Seattle Seahawk, who's been on a bit of a tear lately, goes to the Ravens. Ravens still feeling like they got a chance this year, at least to make a little bit of a move rather than, let's say, getting into sell mode. Cowboys, very active today. They go get Logan Wilson at 10:30, first move. Got a lot of you guys out here wondered if we were going to make a move for him. He went for a seventh round pick, so the cost wouldn't have been high. I think this does speak to the confidence of both getting Ernest Jones back in decent order here pretty soon, and also where they feel Drake Thomas and Tyrese Knight are as the 1-2 punch kind of filling in around that they feel okay about the depth. Maybe also that they like what they got in Chris Paul out there on the old practice squad. So Logan Wilson goes for kind of peanuts out there to the Cowboys. The Jaguars add Jacoby Myers, free him up of his Raider prison, and send him out there to the New England Patriots for a 4th and 6th round pick. That compensation feels about right. And boy, the Patriots might be a team to be able to quietly be able to make some noise here when we get to the playoffs with how they're making and how they're coming together over there. Colts made the blockbuster move of the day, shocking the nation, going out there and moving 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. Gardner just signed this monster deal with the Jets, but they already got Myers and Morrison. Why wouldn't you with the handsy Ramsey? That's just how it tends to go. So he is on his way out there to the Colts. The Colts are absolutely going for it. Jervius Ward, Amon Gardner are your 1-2 out there. Interesting on that side of it. Adonai Mitchell also goes over there to the Jets as well. So the Jets really in sell mode here today. Add 2 first-round picks early, and then they're going to at the top here. You can see that they added also with the Cowboys making a trade move here of getting Maze Smith, and then they're going to get a 2027 first-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick. So high cost there, but 3 first-round picks, a second-round pick, Maze Smith, the Adonai Mitchell. I think you got to give the Jets a lot of credit here for doing what I often present that you need to be doing here, which is knowing where you're at organizationally, not getting into dream mode. And when you make that realization, make the appropriate moves off the back of that. They are truly, fully, deeply at the beginning stages, really they shouldn't be, but they are, of rebuilding. And that's when you start to move these kind of assets in this way to try to stock up on the picks to start to really set a stage down the line here as you can. Seahawks, of course, made their move for a 4th and 5th rounder, adding our guy Rashid, and then Bears pass rusher Tampa Bay Buccaneer pass rusher Joe Tyron Shoyanka goes to the Browns for a 7th round pick, 6th round pick kind of swap. Former Tampa Bay guy, he had been with the Browns this past year, but a guy that's never really been able to quite tap into that first round pedigree for where he went. We've also got the Eagles keeping, of course, A.J. Brown. They've decided to put that in there. There was a rumor that he might be moved, and the Chargers get a little bit of both offensive line help, bringing in Trevor Penning to that team. Great move there for the Chargers, as that's a very run-centric team. And so getting a guy like Penning who struggles maybe in pass pro but can get after it in the run game, you can see where that fit works really well there on their side of it. You like that move there from the Chargers side of it. I don't know if they're going to really look at him as the guard or try to put him back out to tackle with losing Alt. Probably going to try to make him work out there at tackle, which Herbert, hold your butt cheeks out there if you're going to be out there with him holding up your, like, let's say maybe blind side, for instance. But still a good move to reinforce that as the Chargers are having a good year. And you would like not to have it all just go to hell because you lost your 2 offensive linemen, which is kind of how it looks at the moment. So not a super active day. I think there was a lot of trades and a lot of things down the line that came very close to being happening, but just didn't really ferment. And I think it does speak to as well when you go, why did Seattle give up the 4th and the 5th round, which is a little more than I wanted to give up? Because of the fact that fewer trades were being made, and that just tells you it was a seller's market. You have something to offer, you're going to get maximum return back for it. Jets 2 first-round picks back. First-round pick back for Quinn Williams. He's a great player. Certainly deserving of that pick back in return. But I would say that this was one where you had to be careful if you want to get too aggressive out here in this market, because it's gonna be tough landscape to make a move. One second, I got to sneeze. fall, folks. Sorry about that. But yeah, not a lot of other, I guess, moves out there to be made. We were hearing the Seahawks were in on a lot of stuff, and I think still even pushing after the Shaheed trade. But I think that the cost probably ended up just being a little bit too much, or perhaps we had teams that just weren't willing to really delve out there and really go after it and go get it done in that way. So I like the move here. It's a fairly strong one. Day 3 picks that you throw out there. I don't think you hate that too much on that side of it. And she's definitely going to help out this receiver core. I was joking on Twitter, man. If you want to keep stacking the boxes now, God help you, because we've already just been decimating the stack boxes. And this is what teams are doing. It's a one size fits all, man. Everybody's going in the onesie on us when it comes to defensively how to counter this stuff. And it's not just the condensed splits. It is obviously the 12 and 13 personnel usage, the 21 personnel usage with the fullback I formation kind of looks. That's what's driving these teams into base. That's what's driving these teams not only into base, but to bring up the safety up into the box and help out with some of the extra action down there in the front seven. But what stands out is every single one is doing it. And with Darnold being as good as he's been at being able to take it apart, JSN getting over the top, and a couple of others as well, now you're really going to have to commit to this at your own peril. I just don't see how teams will continue to put all of those guys up around the line of scrimmage here and then leave Rashid with one-on-one on the outside, where if you watch the upload I did on a little 5-minute reaction I did on the channel and a couple of the all 22 cut-ups there from sort of the eye in the sky cam view, you see him at times splitting doubles, splitting the safety over the top just because he's surprising the safety over the top with how quickly he's getting to him. He's really a guy that not only is it about how he can run and get open deep and take the top off and then challenge a safety as far as the help and having to shy over to his direction, but it's also the way that he can run off coverages, which is a lot of what you do in the system as well. Flood zone concepts and whatnot. He can be the tip of the spear at the flood zone concept, where his speed presses that first man out of the zone. You run somebody behind him. They sit down in the zone from where he just vacated, and he's wide open because that first defender's so worried about his speed, so worried about staying on top that he can't drive back in time and peel off of him to get to the guy going back underneath in the zone. So it has a little bit of some domino benefits to it that fall as well on this one. Love this move. I'll be interested to see where my fellow faithful are at as well on this one. But only one move made here by your Seattle Seahawks. Understandable on this one. Not going to cost you a lot of money either. He had about $1 million bonus. He's got a base that's going to be a couple million for the rest of the year. So this does also mean that the Seahawks are in a position now, potentially, I would guess, to maybe look at potentially even kicking the tires on the Charles Cross of the contract extension, perhaps before this year's over with, or somebody else. So maybe this is going to also mean that they're going to maybe pivot in that other direction, knowing that they don't exactly need all this money right now. Even if they don't use it, they can still roll over all of the remaining cap portion they have from this season into next year as it stands. So you don't have to spend it one way or the other. You can always put it to future contract extensions as it is. But here's where we stand. Here's our moves. Good wide receiver unit now. Good depth there, just reinforced on the line there. But with the way the team's running, I can understand that why John was like, yeah, I feel pretty good about where we're at. I'm good. We can just roll with this. Mungles, thank you for 9 months as a Hawks Nest member. It's going to be cool seeing 11 and 22 on either side. 11-22, 11-22. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? 11-22. I love it, man. Yeah, it's good number combination there. I feel like numerologically, it's very clean. Very clean. Catalyst, the only O-line move was Trevor Penning to the Chargers, and I hate that. Yeah, it is. Your Chargers know they're not going to get a ton there. There's a little bit of any port in a storm kind of move from their perspective of it. But this does show you a great point in your part when you look at this and you go, yeah, there wasn't a lot of linemen being moved, where we come back to once again, if you want to go get an offensive lineman, you're going to have to give up the prime pump prices to go get them. There's no such thing in this dojo as cheap quality offensive linemen. And it would seem that still remains the case here at this trade deadline. You got a good one, you ain't letting him go. Mask Temples is Jacoby Brissett named the starter for the Seattle game. I mean, how can they not? Right, Mask? I mean, if they didn't do that at that point, that was just blatant, we want to salvage the Kyler Murray contract. It has nothing to do with actual performance on the field thing. And I think you might have the fans practically revolting out there in Arizona if they had tried it as well. And Jacoby is a capable, competent guy that has been around the block many different times. He can play under center comfortably. He is a little bit statuesque at times, but he's got a little bit underrated mobility too, I would say. There's some times where he's kind of big and hard to bring down. He's got a little bit of that Roethlisberger kind of factor size-wise. But he's shown he can execute this offense and has done very well here with the Cardinals. So much bigger challenge to me going up against Jacoby than Kyler Murray, who I think that Mike McDonald had pretty much put into a box. BLM Bem, how you doing, man? Beast Mode says, hey, Cat, we got him, boys. Shaheen arrived to complete the trifecta. Kelly Hibby, got to go to the game on Sunday. Got to talk to Coach Mike, though, kneeling down and seeing him before he came out of the tunnel. He was so sweet. Oh, that's kind. That's cool. I'm glad he was nice enough to hang with the folks. He's got to be so intense on game days, just locked in. I don't know if you could even talk to me if I was a coach on the game days. I'd just be like, this is what we play for. Kenrick, how you doing, man? This gives Seattle a lot of versatility in offense. I think it's a force multiplier type move. You guys are always on it, man. Exactly what I'm saying. Bang. I see it right over there in the chat, and I hadn't even seen the chat before I said it. We are in complete telekinetic mindset, psychic, whatever you want to call it. That's how I see this too. He's going to get deep. He's going to challenge these defenses in that way, but knows the offense in full, and he can run a lot of stuff off. And defense's tendency when they have kind of that burner on the front end, you can see this at times with DK Metcalf. You can run that guy through. He takes up a lot with him, run stuff behind him, and you're going to find a lot of openings on that back end. And then when you combo it up with teams blitzing you at a high rate and throwing stacked boxes up, and then now when you're looking in coverage, you don't have as many bodies on the back end to cover up those kind of flood concepts. All the much more space opens up. All the much more bigger plays happen. Brian Myers, he might relieve Horton from PR duties also. Yeah, maybe. Maybe on that. I could see him doing the kickoff stuff and Horton doing the punt return stuff, Brian, myself. I think that's going to be the role, but it's possible it could be the punt too. Phoebe, thank you for the $2 donation. Jesse's reaction to the Rasheed trade was awesome. I didn't have a chance to see it. What did Jesse say on that? What did Mr. Naylor have to say? Boy, those guys are feeling themselves. One night of Walter Nolan and my NFC West Roundtable DM has been just these guys. They get one take right, man. They get one take right on a one night. You know what I mean? Let me see this. Where's Last Second Sports at here? I know I got him up here somewhere. I'm following the dude. I'll have to look it up. Interested to see what he's got to say on this. Why can't I find him? I know I'm following him. Oh, for the love of goodness. Oh, for the love of goodness. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's not a bad reaction there. That was worth it. That was worth the air silence there. Let's see what our local guy Jesse thinks about it. I mean, he would want to you'd think just kind of poo-poo it down, right? A little bit. So let's add this image here. Let's see what Jesse thinks here, shall we? All Mary Marioff says the Saints are trading Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks, and then Jesse. To your point, feed me. Yeah, it's always a good feeling when the competition don't like the move. It's always a good that's always a good sign that your GM's moving in the right direction when the comp's like, fuck! No. Thank you, feed me. Mark Sanchez with a $20 donation. Thank you for that, Mark. Very kind of you, bro. Very, very kind of you. B, I'm extremely happy with the trade. Plus, this move was linked to the Rams. I'd rather him on the Hawks instead of the Rams, even if he's a rental. I take this trade every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Well, thank you for that $20 donation, all your support to the channel, Mark. I echo your sentiments on this in full. I had said as we led in the deadline, you know, we all, and I think we all kind of feel this way. I've been in the community where we'd love to have certain positions. We'd love to a Max Crosby to be available. We'd love JPJ with Raiders to be up, Cesar Ruiz to be willing to be had from the Saints. But with knowing how much the cost was going to come to go get those positions, say nothing of maybe there was even teams not willing to give you those guys, even if that was going to be the case that you know, that you could get them or that they were willing to give them. And so it does take the players being available for those positions you want to upgrade for that to occur as well. And then absent of that, when you were sitting on as much cap space as the Seahawks were sitting on, because that's a part of this deal to think about, is that you had top 7 amount most of cap space for a team that we're hoping can emerge as a true Super Bowl contender even this year. And if that is true, that statement I just said, that there's a hopefulness that you can get there, and it's not a pie in the sky, wish on a shooting star kind of hope, but an actual one, which I think a lot of people would say, hey, you've won, you know, so what, 6 of the last 7 games. You had Tampa Bay right up to the brink. You had the 49ers right up to the brink. You're only 2 losses. And so you seem to be one of those better teams out there. And it seems to be a pretty wide open year. That's another thing to take into account here. Maybe not the kind of year to just have all of that 20 plus $22 million or whatever they're sitting on in cap space. Maybe put a little bit of a dent into it, you know? If it can help the team out, if it can reinforce the ranks, give you depth, give you insurance. And that's why I think this is not an insurance kind of move. It's an aggressive one, but it is one where, yeah, that does help you out in that way. Rasheed Shaheed can help this offense out. It's not going to take, well, if you can find the creative way to get him manufactured touches into manufactured positions. No, he knows the offense. He can get open. He can take a top off. We've seen with Darnold here pretty early on in this year. He is willing to be aggressive pushing the ball down the field. He was aggressive pushing the ball down the field last year with the Minnesota Vikings. First and foremost, you'd love to address a weakness like right guard, sure. But you don't also just don't not make a move because of the fact that, you know, well, it's not addressing the exact position we would exactly want. And for the day 3, for what is going to probably be very likely a weaker draft, that's another part of the puzzle on this one to me. I'm okay with that. And if we happen to end up turning around and finding a way to get him a deal done, and this is not a guy to me that's necessarily been in a position to say, well, I deserve to command $20 million a year. So maybe there's also a way to find a way to get one of those, you know, mid-market receiver deals done here. I've said I don't think you can afford to do 2 receivers up around $40 million per year in that area of things, but can you do one up at the 40 and then have one that's a little bit on the lower stock of it, you know, more in the maybe the lowerish teens per year kind of situation? Does he flop out potentially for Cup after this year if the team wants to move on at that point? We'll see. You have flexibility here now. That's the other part of this. But Mark, it does seem like most of the fans have a similar feeling as you on this. I share the similar feeling on you of this. Any of the reticence I've seen has been just a little bit about the draft capital, but no one has been able to doubt that this man's going to be able to impact this team in a real positive way with whatever he brings here to it. And now if Seattle just wants to go 40 attempts every game pass happy because these teams just aren't going to stop stacking and they're just not going to stop blitzing and they're just not going to stop putting all those bodies up in the line of scrimmage, well, then so bloody well be it. As you wish. Mark with another $5, man. Thank you for that, Mark. He says Jacoby will start and Kyler is ruled out for another 4 to 8 weeks. His time in Zona is done. Where's my deal?
Enough said.
Yeah, Kyler got that Jacoby-itis. And it's got to be a tough look from a Cardinal organization perspective that a guy like Jacoby that's been in so many different stops and had a lot of different opportunities to kind of ascend as kind of one of those reclamation type of projects. Not that Jacoby was ever looked at as a major high draft pick, but he's a guy with some physical ability and what he brings to the stage. And him coming in there and executing this offense is so much of a better level than Kyler. Indeed, this is absolutely marking the end. And the only way that it wasn't going to mark the end is if basically right now in the Seahawks pivot game, this game here coming off Dallas, where he is healthy enough to play, this would have been the one where we're going to do one last dash to throw it out there and see if we can get it from him. But I think that they're sort of resigned at this point going, okay, we're going to just have to eat the major amount of dead money this offseason. We're going to have to look somewhere else. And I don't think it's got to be a completely bad thing from a Cardinal fan perspective. You can probably always come back to Jacoby and give him some lower end market deal if you had to have him as a bridge. And then we've also seen the NFL in recent years, you might be able to go out there and look at a guy out there that's been on kind of in the market, like we got some Mac Jones going to the Niners, and you find one of those kind of guys that can come in and execute this offense, and you feel so good about where the defense is. Add another wide receiver maybe to the mix on the team through the offseason, and this thing isn't as far away as it might somewhat have looked for the Cardinal fans a couple of weeks ago as they're in the midst of this 5-game losing streak. But Jacoby makes them tougher for us this next week. That is for sure. He played a pretty gutsy game against us in the Patriots game last year, and we had him under a lot of duress in that one. Cover McBride is all I got to say, because he's going to work that option next week like nobody's business. Max Sharamet, thank you for the $2 donation. Man, I really wish Max Crosby was an option. Equals hurt. He might be. The Raiders never at any point in time indicated that they were going to be willing to move him or that was an option on the table. Never factored in, never came down the line. And it always seemed as though they were in the position of saying, that they were just basically in that spot of saying, it's what it is here on this one. We want to, he's part of the building block here. We're keeping him. So there might be a thing with him on the hurt structure. He was, of course, a couple weeks ago held out in that game as a precaution. Maybe there was a worry that he wouldn't, fully pass a physical if he was moved in the trade right now. He's willing to play and he can play through whatever he's dealing with, but that they would say, well, if we're throwing 2 first-round picks, that said team moving for those first-round picks is going to want a clean physical bill of health, and he's not going to supply that to them right now. Maybe that's a factor to your point in this, Max, that came into play on this one. It's not to be undersold. It could. Talking to somebody recently was speaking about they're at a medical center down here in San Diego, and was talking about it's a place where a lot of football players come down to get MRI'd. And just what was stunning when they were talking to me about him from the MRI person's perspective and talking to this person I was speaking to was they were just talking about how often these players just have a litany of things that show up on the MRI, and they'll deny it. They'll be like, I don't feel anything. I'm fine. I'm good. But it's like the MRI is showing it. It's right there. I thought that was kind of an interesting little tidbit. Catalyst. Thank you for the $5 donation, Catalyst. I know some 12s are disappointed we couldn't get a right guard, but when there is only one real positional concern instead of 4 like last year. Oh, let me say it right here. I know some 12s are disappointed we couldn't get a right guard, but when there is only one real positional concern instead of 4 like last year. Yes. Yeah, I can understand where they're at on that. And when people looked at me and they saw my frustration on draft day with not going after Tate Ratledge, for instance, and why I was such a harper and kind of a bit of a pain in the ass for you guys to have to listen to me when it came to my complaining and moaning, about the fact that we didn't go get another, guy into day 2 there on this offensive line who could have pushed a right guard to be a starter and really been an option there for us. And that this is kind of why, a little bit to your point, Catalyst, is because, okay, there's nobody in free agency we like. We don't want to go pay the money that Will Fries is going to command. He's not going to let us do a physical. He wants a 5th year on his contract. Okay, I get it. Going that path. You go, okay, I'm good there. And then you go to the draft and you go, okay, well, then that means that this now becomes the second lever we can pull to go and then get that offensive lineman. but there's not going to be a lever 3 and a lever 4 just before training camp, just before the trade deadline. Those levers aren't going to really exist. The one trade, to your point, Cass, the one trade of an offensive lineman today, when there's plenty of teams out there that need offensive line help, that are in the mix of the playoffs, in the mix of their division, in the mix to be contenders, represents the fact that you have only 2 points of levers on a year that you can pull those to get that upgrade, to get that improvement. And so why did I hammer so hard at the draft when they did not make that move for another lineman at day 2, knowing there wasn't going to be a guy in day 3 that you could really go find that was going to be much of a factor in that way and help you like you could in day 2 of this last draft? Because of this, because there's not another time to go get on it. So I can totally get the 12s being disappointed in it. I get their hope for it, as they look like maybe this year was going to be the year where a couple guys, Ruiz or Jackson Powers Johnson, or even a Zeitler maybe, could actually be positioned out there on the market for us to go and take a stab at. But goes to show you on this, when it comes to our approach to this offensive line here now as we move into this next offseason, and probably are going to have to need to address center and right guard, that we're probably smart to address those and address those as early as we can, not to have to make it wait to get to the draft if ideal. And then if you can make a move for a draft pick for a player at that time, if there's a Lundberg out there with Lindenberg out there with the Ravens, and they're not willing to give him that contract extension, can you talk to them about a guy like that and pull him in? So I'm okay with the 2 like that. And like you said, I think it's a great point as well, Catalyst, that last year it was a much more worse offensive line, worse outlook for what was going on with that situation. A lot of the issues being the super pass pro way you were going about your business. Charles Cross was relatively good, though there were still those a little bit injuries in and out there a bit, but he was kind of going good. But Lucas was still on the flat tire. Right guard, no. Center, no, not really. Left guard, definitely no. Now we've got a lot of other spots that are at least kind of cleared up, and who knows? Bradford's coming off his best game of the year this last week. He was lock solid in pass protection, not a pressure given up, not a quarterback hit given up. So maybe in Bradford's case, there's a little bit of development going on within the system, and that the team feels a little bit of that, and that's where their confidence comes in. Maybe too, team feels good about Christian Haynes coming back off of IR and being able to, if not supplant, at least be a little bit of competition to the mix there for that right guard position. Feed Me, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, Mike was like, we're cooked after that trade. I love it. It's a great one. I think even our competition, and you're speaking to Mike of AZ Sports Fan, who I'll be talking to in about an hour and a half on a Behind Enemy Line session. But yeah, I think that the competition recognizes that this is a good trade for us. This is going to be universally looked at as a good trade for the Seattle Seahawks. You didn't have to give up the day 2 pick to do this. I think that's a big key to this, in that the Saints were reportedly wanting a 3rd round pick back for Rashid. So you getting him down to a 3rd and a 4th, knowing that there was competition, as someone else was speaking about, maybe the Rams being in on this kind of deal, trying to make that as well, because the Rams lost Tutu Atwell to IR right now. So they're definitely looking potentially at that upgrade, where you also maybe gave up that little bit of extra draft capital to keep Rashid away from the Rams. And it makes a lot of sense. And so this is one where it's going to be, I think, hard for anybody that wants to be kind of poo-poo or look negatively down on this trade to say that it's a bad one. Not to me. I think, and not to many others on this, they're going to look at it and go, yeah, we're good position after this one, like where the receiving core is at. And I know many of you were a little bit nervous about the receiving core out there. But thank you, Feed Me. CD Woods, thank you for the $5 donation, CD. I already liked him beforehand, but it makes it all the better we got someone Jake wanted. Laughing out loud. Can't wait for the roundtable tonight. Indeed, it's going to be a fiery roundtable tonight. You got yours truly out there with my weekly rubbing. Like you take a puppy, you got to rub their nose, and you don't pee here. You got to. That was the old. I wouldn't do this, but it was the old school approach. Is you'd rub their nose in the pee to let them know you don't pee inside. I'm doing my weekly Sam Darnold rub their nose in the pee to get them to smell it, so they know not to pee inside with bad quarterback takes ever again. So I get to do that on a weekly basis, especially with Sam making me look so brilliant every single week, like he's doing. Then we got Jake and Mike feeling themselves over the one game of Walter Nolan. Oh, you guys, the tweets I've gotten from these two and the DMs, and they feel like they're the draft prophets because Walter Nolan, who hasn't done jack diddly dandy squat through the first part of the schedule, finally has a game where he gets out there and plays and does something. So then there's that. And then we got Seattle taking Rashid Shaheed, and as the only as the only NFC West foe really making that trade deadline deal of, I think, even really any significance. I don't think Jake or Jesse would say that Roger McCreary or the other cat that they got out of New England out there are better players than what we got. We got better at the deadline. Of the 4 teams in this division, we got better. They got maybe some reinforcements. They got some depth that it won't hurt them, certainly. It helps. But I wouldn't call this definitely wouldn't call this a difference-making move, but it's certainly one that does, I think, it moves the needle a little bit. It's going to be a fun roundtable tonight. If you guys aren't subbed on up, please do get subbed on up. 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and it's an NFC West roundtable, so it's a separate channel of this channel. I do out every week with Mike, Jesse, and Jake, and I love working with those guys because they're all very smart guys in their outlook of the teams and the sport, and them wanting Rasheed Shaheed is just, and them lamenting us getting Rasheed Shaheed is just another representation of that. Those guys know their stuff. Not when it comes to Walter Nolan, though. I still dig my heels in on that one. Thank you, though, CD. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. Do you think this was a move to match the Rams? Very possible. I do buy into the Rams being in on this because of the Atwell injury, and Atwell does serve in that same role a lot of times within the Rams offense to run that coverage off up over the top, to clear things up into the middle of the field so that Stafford can attack there. So they did need this kind of player theoretically to be added back in. I could see it being possible on that. Wouldn't be shocked if we learned that was the case of it. It would be interesting from a Saints perspective on, you have both the offer of the Hawks and the Rams with both a 4th and 5th rounder, and you determined that you would give them to us, and that still the Rams have a better chance of getting further along than you. Though I guess, I could maybe see their thinking there a little bit on that, but it's not like, our picks are right on top of each other at the moment, So, but it'd be fun to know what the bottom line was on that one, or maybe the Rams were like willing to do a 4th and a 6th or a 4th and 7th. Can't think that the Rams with the Mr. F them picks would have been like a 4th and 5th. That's just too much. I can't go that far. But maybe so, especially with the Rams having the 2 first rounders in this upcoming draft as they do. Maybe we'll get some details on that. I'd like to know that, HHG. Thank you for the donos, guys. Appreciate you for that. Very, very kind as always. Seth says, is it possible that we release Cooper Kupp? You're not going to release him this year, of course, but could you get into the off season and take a look at doing it then? It's possible. As I get into the 2026 situation with Cooper Kupp, he is carrying a $17.5 million cap hit. He has only $8 million of dead money. So Cooper Kupp after this year, you could theoretically, if you did not feel like Kupp's health is going to hold up in the long term, you could move out you could save $9.5 million off of your salary cap, $8 million dead money hit for a team that doesn't have any real dead money on the books right now. And then just maybe take that money and move it right on over to Rasheed Shaheed in the form of like a 3-year extension at like 3-year, $39 million deal or something. That's certainly a possibility that you could do that. But you could also just keep them all because Kupp operates from the slot. Rasheed's an outside guy. JSN's now an outside guy. You're going to run a pretty low amount of 3 wide receiver sets as it is. But, we'll see. I would think that if there's an extension coming, if you're going to try to sign Rasheed to an extension, it's going to probably come at the cost of Kupp. I can't see you signing JSN, having Kupp's contract at $17.5 million, and then putting a 3-year, $39 million deal together for Rasheed Shaheed, really as much as any reason, because this team just doesn't lean into as much of the 3 wide receiver looks. They're much more often in that 2 wide receiver, 12 personnel, 13 personnel. Brian says, no more Bobo. Yeah, he's probably not getting on the field too much after this, Brian. Yarl. So I take it this means the front office expects Ernest Jones to be back sooner than later. I would expect so, Jarl. I mean, you could have had Logan Wilson for a 6th-round pick beating out the Cowboys. And so if there was a concern with Jones, I would think that that would be a move you just make, much like, just that insurance, very cheap insurance for a team that you think and hope can compete. You don't want to have a middle linebacker sink your hopes a little bit this year because you just don't have a somewhat competent backup. Brian says John Schneider will recoup those draft picks come draft day. IMO. Yeah, good point, Brian. The man is known for trading back, but this might be the one year I wonder on that, Brian, a little bit, because I think that part of this is that he knows he doesn't maybe need 7 guys to come into this next team next year, and that those 7 guys are all going to make the roster. Remember back when we were in the height of the Legion of Boom era time, you were releasing high picks. You had a couple of times you released 4th-round picks, Amara Darbo and Chris Harper of Kansas, and that's kind of what can happen on this when you value those picks too much, is that you end up having all the selections, but then you don't actually have the roster spot or space because you have a better guy out there to throw out than the guy that you'll draft. I think that might be a bit of this. And as much, Brian, just because of the fact that the draft is kind of known for being so weak, which makes me tend to think that you got to get while the getting is good, i.e., you're going to need some parts to get some instantaneous returns and production on your field. You better get it in day 1 or 2, because once you get into day 3, that ain't a happening. But again, I haven't dive fully into this draft to ensure that that's 100% the case, just the feeling I'm getting looking in on this. Anvil says, I can't wait to see Riley Mills. I think he's going to be a beast. Player that the team had a top 52 grade on, Anvil. And a guy with that top 52 grade who had only recently transitioned into 3-tech. So not a guy that's playing his whole life as a defensive tackle. He's been playing it as an ed. And I think part of Seattle's evaluation in that was saying, man, what about the upside with this guy when he really gets used to carrying 300 pounds and he really gets used to playing inside and working off leverage and all of that. Jacoby Brissett will start this week, says Rampansy. Kyler Murray remains sidelined playing the new Call of Duty early release. Marty, Seattle can gloat about our roster on offense today. Fully valid. Haters mad. Yeah, I would be too. You're already doing what you're doing, and then you're adding this on top. And guy with a great reputation right now, Rasheed, in that Saints locker room. You can tell a lot about a player when he leaves at the amount of voices that are frustrated or shaking their head or like, man, that sucks to lose that. Riverside, how you doing, man? Brian's front office might be comfortable with who they have to cover Jones's injury in the short term. That's part of, I think, it. I look at it like they probably have the 3 guys that they feel good about, and that those guys can kind of be moved around. And Knight is very confident to fill in their middle linebacker. I think this does definitely say that they feel good. Maybe Chris, like I was mentioning earlier too, Chris Paul, maybe Surratt, who you've had on the roster here too. They might feel okay about those guys being able to hold it down. Drew G says slightly less Bobo. Not no Bobo. Just less Bobo. TW McMystery. Sauce Gardner being traded is wild. Pretty wild trade. Love it from a Jets perspective. I didn't like them giving him the contract when they did, considering where their team was at. And this is a way of, from their perspective, of kind of almost in a lot of ways, converting salary cap to extra draft capital a little bit, because the Colts have to give this up, not as much just because Gardner's that worth those goods. You're giving it up because of the debt, partially. It is a part. It's just a part of the pie. It's not all the pie, but a part of the pie is the dead money that the Jets have to sustain by moving off of Gardner. Great trade for the Jets. Joseph says Sauce is overrated. That's why I call him the Handsy Ramsey. Colts got hustled, says Joseph. And I agree with you.
Enough said.
Enough said. Enough said. I get why the Colts want to be aggressive. I do, but that's a spicy meatball. Jarl says, I hope this means Ernest Jones is suiting up for the LA game in 2 weeks. Me as well. We are going to need him. Zach says, will the refs continue to coddle Sauce now that he's no longer a Jet? You ain't getting coddled in Indianapolis. That's That's biggest city in America kind of stuff, man. These days are over. I based on what I heard on the outside looking in with Gardner, and I'm checking this out right now. Word on the street was that he was kind of being after that first year where they weren't checking jack diddly dandy on him, that he started to get it. And so yeah, if you look at him from that perspective, he's first year, he's got 5 penalties in the first year, 5 penalties in the year two. Then he's up to 10 penalties last year. He's already about halfway in the year. He's at 4 this year. So officials doing a little bit more of a better job of going after him there. Kind of what stands out though as well is like the quarterback rating when targeting him is starts out at 53.5 his first year, goes up to 76.9, 76.5 his second year, then goes up to 79.3 into year three. And then this year after he got paid, he's allowing a quarterback rating of 102.5. He's only given up about 170 yards, so he's not being targeted a lot. And he is allowing a low reception rate. So it's not like he's purely bad, but yeah, I hate how grabby he is. And he still somewhat gets away with it, I think. Chris's Adams 2.0 deal with Sauce might turn out to be in that. Very might just turn out to become just that. That's a lot. I guess maybe the benefit they're hoping on is that the bonus money bleeds. So all they got to deal with is the base and option bonus stuff. But I mean, he's not butt cheap at that point. Still a little pricey. Jonas, I think they must like Bradford's adjustment, and Haynes must be looking good coming back at right guard. Also, they must feel great about interior linebacker play. Also, Eamon allows for some interchangeable parts. He does. He can probably eat up some will reps here and there if you need him to from time to time. And yeah, I think that those are pretty good assumptions to be made. I'm really hoping now with Haynes because Jonas at training camp, he seemed like he was in a bit of a doghouse. They're having him operate from center. He didn't look comfortable at center. He didn't look good at center. And you're going, why aren't you having him run at right guard at least a little bit here? And then the injury thing kind of came up. Besides just top-notch prospects only to get ruined by the Jets. Yeah, they'll mess it up probably. Bad ownership still there, man. And that's always the cancerous growth off of the team that you can't just neutralize and still operate from within. Anvil says Jets will still be asked. Everybody's beating them on the Jets. Jets will still be asked. They pick in top 10 every year. Oh, man. Michael says, hey, chat, just got here. Did we trade for Shaheed? I'm no more after. No more trades after that. Just Shaheed, Michael. 4th and 5th round pick. Abdi says, one to right guard, brother Brandon, but I am hella happy we got our deep threat wide receiver in Shaheed. Says Mike McDonald and Josh Schneider trust these teams. I trust them too. Go Hawks. Hey, go Hawks. Well put on your part. I felt the same way. I would have loved to have been aggressive for a right guard option. I would have given up a little bit more capital than probably a lot of the fan base would have been comfortable doing so, because I think you would have taken up the baseline considerably at what has been, your weakest position. But I get the fact that there just weren't the trades to be made too. I think if we had seen 4 or 5 or 6 other offensive linemen being moved in this day, and you weren't one of those teams jumping on that, you could kind of jump back and say, man, why not the trade of that? But when there's nobody being moved but Trevor Penning, and that is definitely a we give up on him kind of move as far as the New Orleans Saints. That is we desperately need any tackle at all anywhere right now. Charger team, that's what's driving that move. Not that that's a real helpful offensive line piece for the Chargers. Jonas Doyle, Drake Thomas is playing like vintage Zach Thomas, the Dolphins. I love that comp, man. Yeah, they both have about that same kind of size to them, man. Fast as hell, though. Hell. Space says 4.43 at the combine and a 4.3 unofficial for Shaheed. He's a burner, man. And he's football fast. He's one of those guys you put on a field and he's running by people. Mick, it seems like he was a fan favorite for the Saints fans, so I like what I'm hearing about him. Yeah, somebody just said today that he made the bad football sometimes fun to watch. And that I think that's a cool way of kind of capturing that. Doesn't seem like that, Mick, they're talking about him like he was part of the problem, but more like part of the solution. Misfits still wanting Jamie Sherwood, linebacker for the Jets. I wouldn't have turned him down, man. That's for sure. Abdi says, these teams, Brandon, still good enough to compete. I'm fine. We didn't do anything after Shaheed trade, and we got to keep Tariq Woolen and Boye Mafe. We'll be fine. I love John Schneider. Oh, yeah, bro. Misfit says 21.72 miles per hour touchdown, and it's the fastest touchdown of 2025 for Rasheed Shaheed. Great stat, man. That is that burner status he does carry. Can we grab that right guard? No, right guard, no more. Them options are over with. We got to ride what we got. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. We all we need. We all we got. Hmm. Misfits says, I also wanted Trevor Penning to play right guard. Chargers traded for him. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's played, if I'm not mistaken, particularly well, even when he's gone over to right guard. And he's just kind of trying to learn how to play that position as a guy that's been a tackle. Yeah, he's rocking a 50 grade right now, operating as a guard. So, he's kind of playing at the guard position about as well as Anthony Bradford's playing at the guard position. And, if you're going to make a trade there, you want to go in more than lateral. We need to find a big upgrade there, but I don't know that Penning's going to give you much more above what you're getting from Bradford, really. He might have been a better run blocker, but he's not going to be the pass protector. And Bradford's not a great pass protector, but he wouldn't even be able to give you that. Here also, let's hope Bradford doesn't ruin this offensive line come playoff time. It's valid concern, man. It's completely valid concern. I wanted to hammer this. I've wanted to hammer it every offseason going back for about the last 5 years, and we haven't done so. And we haven't done so at our own peril. And that may turn out to be the case here, too, with this. Brian says Haynes may be the upgrade we need when he's ready. There's a chance there. There's a reason this guy was a former third-round pick, and that there is talent there. He played a lot of college football. So I think that there might be something to that. Jonas says, dude probably needed a year in the weight room in general to make the jump, but also might have been dealing with a lingering injury. He needed to get figured out. You mean Haynes? Yeah, that might be the case. Koken says, I was holding out hope we would have traded for a right guard. How can we address that now past trade deadline? The only thing that you could hope to have happen is that some team out there releases a guy like a Zeitler. The Titans just release him and they all right, you just go where you want to go now. But that's probably not likely to happen. We're kind of stuck with what we probably have. Lethal says, I think we're sleeping on Cable Dew being the long-term answer at right guard. He might be. Team might be very high on him. It's a good point. What's up, AI? How you doing, man? Fun piece is I did notice Torrey Horton got his leg rolled on and was limping a bit after. Any word on if he's injured or ankle or knee or anything? Nothing I've heard about on that fun. I did see that same thing. He did go back to the huddle there, so he didn't even come off the field. But no word on that be anything super concerning for the team with that. Kelly says, it blows my mind that the Dolphins did basically nothing. Like, how do you not try to trade some players? Stupid organizations. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think they were trying to get a first-round pick for Waddle. You could get a second-round pick for Waddle. They feel like he's worth first round. They don't just, can't let him go on that. Bradley Chubb. They did move Jalen Phillips in a deal there, but I mean, even in that deal, they sort of accommodated the Philadelphia Eagles because they converted base to bonus. So the Eagles are only on a $1.5 million cap hit for the rest of the year for Jalen Phillips. It's like, well, you got a deal done, but you even had to kind of take it in the shorts just to get that deal done. They're badly driven team by an ownership group, and yeah. Mick says, man, it's good hearing your coverage, Brandon. Listening to the Bleacher Report coverage today was really rough. Well, thank you, Mick. I appreciate that. Always trying to get better here. We can. Thomas says, don't get me wrong, I like Shaheed, but I would prefer getting Hendrickson or Crosby. From what Dan Vien said, Seattle was in on Crosby and Garrett. Oof. Love to hear if those teams just end up retracting and not willing to make the moves, or if it was that we weren't willing to give up the capital or the draft compensation to make it happen, if that was the case. But as my understanding with Hendrickson and the last reports I heard on him, Thomas, was that the Bengals were still trying to accommodate a first round pick. That's what they wanted back in return. And it just kept coming back to this trade deadline to me when I look at it, not just from a Seahawks perspective, but an NFL perspective. This was a seller market. This was you're going to have to pay us over the top of what you're probably comfortable paying versus what you'd like to ideally think the trade deadline should be. And quite frankly, I think it's what the deadline's become since you've gone to the 17th game season, since you've extended the deadline out. You just have more teams that feel like they're in the mix. And the more teams that feel like they're in the mix, the less teams you're going to have they're going to sell. And those teams that are selling are going to want all the goods for it. And so I would imagine with a guy like Crosby, it was going to be over the top to make it pull and go. But it's cool to hear that they were in on it. And I hope it was something where it was just significant capital being asked over the top that just had them a little too reticent versus just, decent capital. Raiders are dumb as hell, though. You look at what the Jets are doing right now and what they're going to come away with on this day as far as draft capital, an organization in a very similar place to where the Raiders are. No way you can't tell me and look me in the eye that they shouldn't be doing the very same thing with Max Crosby. You could have gotten potentially triple the assets that Quinnen Williams got if you moved to Max Crosby, or at least more than double. And that's not the smart move for the Raiders to make right now. Instead, you're going to hold on to him. Instead, you're going to hope you can get that draft capital back this offseason. What if Max goes down to a big injury here in the next couple of weeks? What if you can only end up now able to get maybe just one first-round pick after this year because of mitigating factors? Somebody was just talking about the Dolphins and their lack of movement, and why wouldn't they do something? Kelly was just talking about lack of movement. Why would they do something? Why would you just, as I was saying about the Dolphins, same thing here with the Raiders. Doesn't seem to matter who's in there and who's running it. Time and time again, you can come back to them and you go, man, just dumb moves. Lack of intelligence at play. Not appropriately really understanding where you're at organizationally. It doesn't have to be that they move Max to us, but just that you move him and get back those returns. Do what the Jets are doing. Stack those picks up. Do what we did a couple of years ago with the Russell Wilson trade. Stack those picks up. Get a bevy of picks into a couple year span so that you can create your base for your team. Very hard to just create the base with just the singular 7 picks every year, and you're never getting more, and you just got to make it off those 7 picks and then pay guys at the right time and have the development. It is kind of an easier point, like you can do like the Hawks did with that 2-year trade of the Denver Broncos and throwing an extra 3rd round pick there for Geno and an extra second round pick there for DK Metcalf. You toss all that stuff into there where you can really now set that base true and right and good. How are the Raiders going to set their base right now? They drafted Ashton Genty last year without a bad offensive line. It just these organizations just can't get right. I'm kind of surprised, quite frankly, a guy like Brady and Spytek can be there. And I can only think that it was probably Carroll's voice was heavily influencing that, saying, don't move him. But not smart by the Raiders, not smart by the Bengals. We're going to tell we need to get a first round pick back for Trey Hendrickson. Like, who's giving you that? Give me a break. You couldn't get that in the offseason. Why are you going to get it at the trade deadline? Jonas says we should be able to get a premier guard next year in free agency if we don't discover one in Haynes, Bradford, the stretch run out here. They both can complement one another's deficiencies, but rather people with 78. Yeah, I think you're going to see them address it this offseason, Jonas. And probably be hard to do in free agency, man. There just doesn't, it's like this trade deadline. There doesn't seem to be a lot available in free agency, but if there's one there, definitely go get them. Ron Sausage, how you doing? It's good to see you. Or else is the defense was healthy and it doesn't need Crosby Garrett to win a Super Bowl. It's depth at linebacker secondary and Anthony Bradford being terrible at run blocking that will prevent the Hawks from going to the Super Bowl. Very possible, man. Very possible. I don't necessarily doubt it. I have that off. It needs to be on. Pansy Jesse's not happy. No, he's not. Lethal Mark's a pretty giving guy for a dude who just lost his job. I know. I love his emoji too that he's got on there. It's just it's the best. That he got the mugshot in there. It's great. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, so Cup probably lost most of his snaps because of injury based on the trade. I'm not so sure on that myself. So, is there a possibility it could be that? It is. I mean, it could be as much that maybe there's something going on with Cup as far as long-term injury is concerned, and that they think that this is going to be something that might linger or be something that comes back and bites him, and that they really are worried about that. But Cup has been playing predominantly or just about most of his snaps when they're not in just base situations offensively. He's been your slot guy. And so with Rasheed, he's a guy that kind of plays maybe slot like 25% of the time. He's going to be more of a 70% on the outside kind of cat, maybe a little bit of slot here and there. And so I would imagine that wouldn't be the case, Jordan, but it is possible. And maybe it's that Cup's got injury and they kept Horton in there, and then they put Rasheed to the outside when they go into 3 wide set situations. But hard to say on that. Hard to exactly quite pinpoint their thinking on this one. And again, we just don't know the deep nature of the Cup injury spot. So we don't know how bad it really is or what the prognosis is there with that situation, which then could explain a lot more of this move if it was that. I guess it would seem like to me, Jordan, if he was a guy where they're thinking Cup's back in 2 weeks, should be fine, makes it hard to kind of register what your full intention is, especially with Torrey Horton playing so well out the gate too. But might have just been that they come down to it thinking, hey, this is the move we can make. We have a lot of moves, a lot of irons in the fire that we're trying to bring home. We're not able to bring any of those home. So let's bring this one home that, certainly can't help. And we get out in front of things. And I always say, take things past the line at times, hey, NFL teams will take positional groups right up to the line and they'll be like, oh, we're good right up at that line. Then something happens and they don't have anything over the top to really handle the depth of the loss. And they're left scrambling. And the way to maybe then avoid this a bit is to already kind of anticipate some of that stuff down the road a bit with this. So we'll see. We'll see there. Kind of hard to say on that, but possible, Jordan. I wish I could give you a little bit more one way or the other on that one, but I'm still kind of unsure on how they're going to roll that exactly. Mark Sanchez, thank you for another $2 donation and all of your support today. It says the new nickname going around, Legion of Zoom. Legion of Zoom in the death zone. 2 parts of this team you can't. We got to give the special teams, they got to get a nickname too. So if it's Legion of Zoom and the Death Zone, you've entered the Legion of Doom, the Death Zone. What do you call it? What's a badass name for a special teams unit? Kick-assers? It's got to be something around the feet, right? We got to work on this one, people. Legion of Feet. One second. Sneeze. Be right back. Legion of Zoom. I love it. John Naylor, thank you for the $5 donation, John. Brando, it's fun to see the Roundtable Darnold denier weekly struggle on seeing the light. Stubbornness, not a virtue. Maybe Seawalk can encourage him. Laughing out loud. I'll try, but John, Jesse don't listen. How is it you can be named Naila and him named Naila, but he doesn't get it like you? Family should think alike a little bit, don't you think? I do, yeah. But I see him, and he won't learn. No. And I'll try. Walken will definitely try tonight. Now, do you see, Jesse? Look me in the eye when you deny. Donald, do it again. I dare you. Look foolish one more time. So he'll try, but Jesse is as stubborn as they come when it comes to certain takes. And sometimes that's smart, and he's right about it. And the light is eventually proven and seen by all. And, you know, that's, as I say, part of what I think he's got a very smart football mind now. He looks at things. I do think when it comes to quarterbacks, we have a very different outlook on what makes a valuable quarterback or doesn't, or what it takes to, you know, make a great quarterback, and when we're seeing great quarterback play and when we're not, and the factors of what come into play with that, when especially it's a little muddy and dirty and not everything is clean for that quarterback at the forefront. But yeah, it continues to be a struggle for these guys, because now you have in Darnold, the guy that I think it'd be one thing if you could, and bear with me, folks. Sorry, I'm having an issue with my nose. I think it would be one thing if Darnold was probably flirting at like a John top 10 level, and then you could still do the denier thing where you go, well, it's still, that rating is arbitrary. His PFF rank is arbitrary. He's not really playing like that. It's A, B, C, D, E. When he's playing like an MVP candidate, and when he's playing like MVP candidate through halfway into the year, it's starting to get pretty tough for you to still be sitting on this ground so firmly, especially when it's coming on the heels of what he did with Minnesota last year. This is only building upon what he did with Minnesota last year. But of course, it all is too just down to this thing of simplification. I always say, John, and I'm really a believer of this. I got hot to trot on this a couple of years ago, where this sort of, it was like an aha moment, or as alcoholics would call it, a moment of epiphany. And that is that I realized that a lot of NFL fans and a lot of NFL takes are operating and driving from a standpoint of simplicity. How can I take something that's so very complicated and take all this data and all this information and simplify it all down into some bargain basement thing that's just this? And so, for instance, with Jesse, I asked him a couple weeks ago, what is it that in your mind makes then finally Sam Darnold being legitimate, capable of taking a team to the Super Bowl, a true top end signal caller at the position in the sport? Well, he's got to go win a playoff game. And it's like, well, that's kind of arbitrary, isn't it? It's just one playoff when he does that'll be finally the proof on the back of what he's done. And it's because, well, he's going to obviously go into the tank once he gets to the playoffs and has to face a legit team this year. Then you'll get the real Sam Darnold at that point, where he'll really show you his true colors, is sort of what he's intimating. Because it happened last year with Minnesota. But again, simplifying all that down onto Sam Darnold's back, not taking into account what the offensive line was or Patrick O'Connell's play calling. And how decimated that line was on top of how bad they were performing. It's weird. And again, it doesn't add up from a consistency standpoint, even from Jesse's own metric, because Brock Purdy has won multiple playoff games. Brock Purdy has taken the San Francisco 49ers to an actual Super Bowl. So his own metric there, you would think that he'd look at Brock Purdy as that same kind of guy, as being that legitimate guy in that way, but that he doesn't. He just as soon as now move over to Mac Jones, he'd be much more in favor of probably rolling with him now into the future, getting out from under this contract, And sure, money is a part of this, but it's also that I think he very well would tell you that he thinks that Jones is the better quarterback of the two. It's like, well, but even then by your metric, you're not, holding yourself to the same account that you're holding me to account on the Darnold thing. So it's one of those places where it's like, where's the flagpole at? Where's the not flagpole, but the cross, changing the uprights a little bit midstream. And I'm going to let him have it. I'm going to let it happen tonight on this. I'm going to let him know, as I do every week on it. Like, those takes, boys, those Darnold takes, huh? And that's why what you're going to see them do tonight, John. So the pivot you're going to see from a couple of guys tonight, including Mike and Jesse, is that the way that they're going to obfuscate that or kind of cover that up is they're going to try to like raise up my Walter Nolan take somehow. So like they'll try to just kind of gloss over the Darnold things. So they'll go to like my Walter Nolan take where I didn't like Walter Nolan. And he has like one good game and they're jumping up and down to try to like, gorillas pound their chest for being so ultimately right about this guy and how good he's going to be. It's like, all right. We'll see. We'll see. Riley Largent. Thank you for the $2 donation, Riley. I really appreciate that. Says, nice jersey. Well, thank you, Riley. Are we related to Steve? We got like maybe granddad or something like that. And that is Riley. That's I grew up on Largent, and that's my childhood sports hero. It's Largent and Griffey, but Largent was the first and foremost. He looked like my uncle. My uncle was an exact doppelganger for Largent. My uncle was a wide receiver in high school too, taught me how to play and all that stuff. And all-time favorite player, Riley. And if you are part of the Largent contingent, salute to you. Please give Steve the Hawks Nest best and let him know the love here that's always true on that, because he was awesome. One of these days, I'm going to get a nice Largent video out on the channel that'll really. I've been working on it for a while, but never quite able to like get it right. Appreciate you though, Riley. Thank you. And thanks for the donation. That's awesome. Best ever. That's my goat, Riley. That's cap letter goat. You can keep your Rice. You can keep your Andy. You can keep your Owens. You can keep all of them. I'll take my Largent. I'll take Steve over every one of them. Jordan. Thank you for the $5 donation, Jordan. Tell me why McCarthy isn't doing just as well as Sam last year. Again, a thing that more data should move you off your point. So I am talking a little bit about Walter Nolan, for instance, on this conversation where I've got to take on Walter Nolan. Didn't like him. Think his engine ran hot and cold in college. Very talented player, capable of giving you a night like he gave you last night. But the engine will have some tendencies, in my opinion, over time to run cold a little bit. And you're not going to get consistency from him throughout a whole game, especially once he has to ascend to being a starter and taking starter snaps. We'll see with time if that's the way that does play out. But if Nolan goes out there and becomes a force, is a really nice starter, is able to go out there and make a lot of noise in what he's doing, and tear it off. And by the way, Riley, you can ever give me an interview with Steve. Tell him Hawks Nest would love to have him on sometime if you are in contact. That'd be an all-time dream interview. I know he's busy in retirement and all that. Well earned. But if he ever is down, I would love to, if I could. But yeah, that's another part. As you get more data, your position should change. It's the old, you want to get it right. You don't want to be right. I'm going to have takes I get right. Going to have takes I get wrong. But take in the new data with time and allow it to move your assessment point of what you're seeing, to guide you in a direction of oh, okay, this is where this is really at with this. And so, with McCarthy last year, I mentioned this because to your point, Jordan, going back to last year, the big narrative that you would get from Sam, or I'd get from the Roundtable, is that Kevin O'Connell, with his little wand, made it all magically happen for Sam last year. That's how it occurred. Is that he just went out there, tapped him with his wand, little pixie dust, and Sam became this whole new man within just this offense. But the second he leaves the pixie dust, he will fall back down to earth and he'll become a pauper once again. Okay, but then we look at this year and we see that McCarthy we don't have JJ out there looking as good as Sam in that same very offense. And that's an offense that they dumped a ton of resources into this offseason. You got your starting tackles out there. You've got the reinforcement of the interior offensive line. You got your receivers out there. You're tight end in Hawkinson. So it's not like, well, they were decimated by injuries or whatnot. Carson Wentz goes out there. He doesn't perform anywhere near as well. He gets injured. But so that's a new data point. And it's a new data point that goes against their old data point of saying that it was him that just rose that up. Certainly Kevin O'Connell helped, but I think giving him so much of that measure of somehow that he gets the weight of it. It's on him as to why it's getting done. It's on him as to why, Sam found that success, where it was much more that Sam had done a lot of that hard work to drive it himself into that position. And then getting a really smart coach on top of that, a smart offensive mind on top of that, along with the good personnel around him, allowed that to show and be at its brightest with it. But he's got very much, I think, in the same equivalent thing here, where it's Kubiak's able to supply that too. The Seahawks offensive system is able to supply that as well. And so much like with it, the hard work he's put in, the development he's had, the steps and growths in his game, then are put on the brightest, shiniest display at that point. But that's then not back to just a coordinator or some system or a player that he gets to play with that makes that happen. It's all of that. It's the full context of all of it. Never anything in football, I always say, folks, and I try to catch myself on this at times because I'm guilty of it too. If you ever find yourself sliding in a direction of an outlook, all due to some base simplistic thing. I look at this player and I looked at this one stat of this player, and that's where I drove my opinion away from it. I looked at a PFF score, and just the score was the end all be all. I'd never seen any plan of him, just saw the score, and that's all I'm going to take away from him. Blah, blah, blah. If you're ever doing that, that's where you're leaving outside of the realm of probably seeing it clearly and true, because football is never really simplified in that way. It usually is about 5 or 6 things all kind of coming in together to make that reality sort of happen. Appreciate you, Jordan, Riley, John, Mark. Thank you so much, all your donations and support. Amen says, do you think bringing in Shaheed means that Cooper Kupp's injury is more insignificant than we first anticipated? It's a possibility. They do play kind of 2 different positions, but then again, Seattle doesn't do a lot of 3 wide receiver looks. And when you have gone to 2 wide receiver looks in base situations before, it is Kupp and JSN that are then out there, or then Horns off the field. So this is a possibility, but the team hasn't. The hard part here, Amen, is just they haven't really indicated how significant this injury is. He didn't have something where he sort of, rolled up and had to be like carted off the field. He was able to basically walk off the field. So it would seem like he is going to be able to come back, but maybe we'll get a little bit more clarity with this once we hear the press conference and discussing this trade and what drove it and where they're standing with that a little bit. Zach says, did the Niners have anything to trade? No, nothing to really move in any way. I mean, they could have moved Jawan Jennings. They could have moved to Brandon Ayuk, but you weren't going to get a lot for those guys. And so they just held pat. CR says, hello from Germany. I'm quite disappointed. Yeah, I like the Shaheed trade, but there was much more to target. JPJ, Zeiler, Gray, Bobby, Luvu, Devondre Sweat. Any of these players would have made an impact. I certainly think the team was probably trying on the offensive line front, CR. I just think that there probably wasn't really a move to be made there, as we only saw today one offensive lineman in the whole sport get moved. And I think that we would have seen a couple more other deals if it was teams were, it's not even to me even as much maybe that they're asking for the sun, star, and moon to make those kind of deals, as much as is they just said, we don't want to make those trades right now. Come back and check with us in the offseason. And so I'm not sure they would have been on Bobby or Luvu. I don't think that they would have liked as much the fit with those 2 guys here for this particular defense. Sweat could have maybe been interesting. But I don't know if he was going to be a guy, Devondre Sweat, that the Titans were looking to move either, as they probably like that player a little bit. So kind of thinks the team's mapping him available too there, CR, and none of those guys got moved today. And maybe a bit of representation that none of them were really on the table to be had. Don't know for sure, but it would seem like that. CR says, by the way, how do you guys like my new profile picture? It's the eagle from the old school German flag mixed with Seahawks emblem. Love ChatGPT. I like it, man. I like it. I can, and definitely still can feel the Seahawk vibe in there with it. So you nailed it, man. Fun piece is JSN, Torrey Horton, and Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp. The vet we have, the best wide receiver room, reminds me of the greatest show on turf with the MVP Sam Darnold playing better than any quarterback. Let's go. Fun's hyped. I love it. Thomas says, I think Seattle and Raiders have the right compensation, but Pete said no about allowing Crosby to be traded. I could see that being the case, Thomas, and I've got a sneaking suspicion on this one. It does kind of reek of Carroll coming in saying no. Brian's Bradford appears on the upswing, coming off his best game this last week. And again, pretty good challenge inside there, I think, where you got Deron Payne and Zerzon Newton in there. Joe Smith says good move, I think. We help out special teams at the same time, which is nice. But part of the between the lines aspect of it is that this could force teams to back off the line a bit, opening up the run. That's what I'm thinking too, is that eventually you're going to have to pick your poison on this one. And you've already had your most of these teams that week in and week out are just getting torn off the top right now as it is playing the kind of defenses they are against the units we have. And I think that there's an anticipation on this a little bit as well within Jackson Smith and Jigba has not been doubled up a considerable amount of time this year, and the doubles are kind of starting to come his direction. I would estimate that they're going to be even more so here. And so, again, room for a guy to get some one-on-one opportunities on the outside. You can't double both receivers at once. You can kind of swing coverage one way, but you're going to need that safety for other stuff in other ways. And so that's going to give you the one-on-one with Rasheed at that point to go over the top with it. And very well the way that they could be looking here. On top, again, so many, to your point, Joe, so much of the line of scrimmage with the stack in the box and stuff that's up on the front side, it is, it has been just endless. It's been incessant and it's been unyielding. And this is, if anything, is going to cause it to be a little bit more yielding now. It'll be this. I think that to your point, Joe, there's a bit of this that's an indicator within what the team's doing on this that's showing you why they also think the run game's not working here. Is you didn't get another offensive lineman necessarily, but you also go for a receiver going, yeah, these teams keep doing this thing. We're going to keep doing this other thing. And so we're going to find one of the most dangerous weapons in the sport at doing this other thing, taking the top off the defense, because these defenses just won't stop. They're like crack addicts. Like, give me another hit. Give me another hit. AI says the Raiders fans would have revolted if they traded Max. They're already suffering enough. Laughing out loud. Very well possible. Casey says, bless you. Thank you, man. These fall allergies, I tell you. Max says Colts got fleeced today, low key. Kind of did. 12th North Chad, heavy price to pay for a rental player. It is a lot. Corbin Smith is saying that he's hearing that the team is going to try to make a run at signing him. So that could come into the factor here a bit, but it is a pricey rental. There's no way around that. I do agree with HHG. It is a worthwhile price if you are going for it. And I think that the team definitely is going for it. I should have traded Max Crosby for Crosby. Hey, I think we tried. I don't think the Raiders were willing to do it. We were in on it. Rampazzi, incredibly frustrating. Pete blocked us from an all-time premier rusher to bust open the Super Bowl. Tell the world we're here. It's Pete's nature, man. He doesn't like to let go. Good players, can't blame him on that. But he didn't let a lot of great ones go here. When you tend to let somebody go, they were kind of at the end of their road for the most part, one way or the other. With a couple of exceptions in there. Earl and Richard were able to kind of like a one more season off thing after they left. But usually once you're moving, he's going to kind of wait to the nth degree to do it. Strange, though, move for the Raiders to me. I look at the Jets and I go, man, how do you, as a Raiders, not looking at the Jets there and going, we should be doing some similar stuff? Nick is very surprised San Francisco didn't make another move for an edge. Yeah, me as well. That team just kind of felt like to me when they got down to the deadline. I know they added a little reinforcement last week, but I think that they've made their peace a little bit with the fact that they know this ride is going to end at some point this year. It's a fun ride. They're going in circles. They're spinning up and down, but eventually it's going to come down to running out of gas. And they can kind of see that coming even if they were to add an edge, I would say. It makes it smart on their part probably not to be doing much. Joseph's back when I was a young lad, back in late Cretaceous. I once saw a Seahawks S on a Cardinal. Don't know why, but this day, the memory always makes me smile. Jonas Shaheed was the simple opportunistic of the cost of not getting him. He's a plug and play, knows Kubiak's system already, and can jump right in. Clint must also really like him. 4 and 5th is nothing. John Schneider recoups it easy. Love the confidence. I love the thoughts. I think I agree. JS says always compete. Damn you, Pete. Damn you, Pete. Cal from South Park, thank you for the $10 donation, Cal. Appreciate you. Can't wait for the roundtable where Mike will pick the Cardinals to win, even though they haven't beat Seattle since 2021, and for Jake and Jesse to say that the Shaheed doesn't scare them. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of that. Don't forget, Kyle, you left out also the part where Sam Darnold's still not a franchise quarterback, and he's gonna come back down to earth. He's just it's this is all just a mirage. That part too. We got to throw that one on top of the pile on that one. It's gonna be a fun night here. And as I was saying earlier on this too, Kyle, they're going to be doing this thing where Walter Nolan, who hasn't played a single game this year, finally gets out there and plays a game and does something like 3 tackles and a sack. And they're going to literally be like jumping up on the desk, acting like they captured the greatest draft outlook ever, because I happen to say it's going to be fun tonight. It's going to be a little bit. We're going to get into it tonight a little bit, but you captured it accurately. Both Jake and Jesse, and Jake in particular, will downsell the Shaheed thing, even though he wanted his Rams to go for that and get it. I think he'll still downgrade it a little bit and be like, no, I mean, it's not really going to do much for them really when it's all said and done. But yeah, you're also right. Mike's going to definitely pick the Cardinals. 1 win, man. After 5 straight losses, 1 win's going to have him like, Jacoby's it, man. The prodigal son, the lost wanderer. We got our lost wanderer. We got ours. Stafford went to the Rams. All of that wandering, he finally went there. You guys got your Darnold. All that wandering. Mac Jones, all that wandering. Now we got our wanderer. It's the key. It's the new key. We'll ask Mike here. I got him coming on here in a half hour for the Behind Enemy Lines session here, Kyle. So we'll see what he's got to say on that one. But I imagine he's going to feel pretty good. Boy, those Cardinal fans were so happy after that win. I get it. That was their season on the line, I guess. But whew, we thought that they won the Super Bowl almost a little bit after that one. Thank you, though, Kyle. Appreciate all of your support on the channel, man. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. Go after Max in the offseason. Raiders are split, yes or no? I've got to think that Max is probably going to get moved sooner than later. I can't see how Max goes into next offseason, a guy that hasn't won, and obviously winning is a very important thing to him. I know he signed the contract a little bit, but it was not the Myles Garrett kind of contract where he really put the team in hawk and made it impossible for them to move him in the future. If anything, it makes it all the more easier to move him this offseason, where the Raiders are only going to have to sustain a $5 million dead money hit to move Max. And yeah, I am expecting at that time that they are going to move him. I think part of why they don't move him right now is just that they think that they can get exactly the same draft capital into this offseason. I don't know if Seattle will be the one to go after him at that point, but I cannot see how the Raiders, and I cannot see how Max doesn't come back and go like, look, this is going to take you multiple years to get this right. I don't want to wait until I'm 30 years old before you're ready to field a team that might be ready to just barely make the playoffs. Like, send me somewhere where I got a chance to go make some action happen. So I'm sure they're going to come back around to it again and try to make a run at it. You lose Boye Mafe this offseason, there's going to be a hole there for getting somebody in there who can make it work as far as an improvement, an upgrade, a replacement, all on top of it, all 3 of those things. And maybe he can be that. Kyle, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate you for that. Week draft for 2026, a late 4th, late 5th is worth it. Great points. Exactly kind of what I was saying a bit earlier on this too, Kyle, where you are probably going to be picking into at the least probably the 20s right now, as we're currently on pace to be picking. So you're talking about it being a late 4th, which is really like a early 5th, a late 5th, which is like an early 6th. So you really come down to giving up on this almost like an early 5th and early 6th round pick is really what it measures out to possibly being here, especially because we'll be 32, if you know what I'm saying. So that's a factor. That's a bit of looking at these trades. You can't just look on the surface of if you were down the lower parts of the end of picking in those rounds. And then the week draft part of it is a part that I don't think is us being a homer on this, but is actually accurately capturing what this draft is looking like. You have a good enough point. There's been enough of this season that's gone along in college football. You knew enough of the guys returning back that to have every single pundit to a man that watches and follows college football will all tell you that this draft is looking weaker than it has been in recent years. It may even get over to the edge of being a bad draft when it's all been said and done. And those things do happen. You do get those kind of years where it's just there's no guys coming out of this draft that are really all giving us much here. It happens. And this year is starting to look like it's got all of the appearances of being that kind of draft. So not as much and not your typical kind of year. If it was a strong draft and where you're picking in that draft, you got to take that into account on this kind of move on making a move for a guy that is a rental here, where it's really not prime draft capital. And I think that the players that we're going to be looking at, that we would have the option to pick, it's certainly something we'll track when draft time comes up. But the players that we have as an option to pick at that 4th and 5th range, I don't think we're going to be like, oh, we could have had this amazing guy in the late 4th round, but we passed because we've had a half season of Rashid Shaheed. I cannot see that being the way that that this plays out in reality. It's possible, but I'd be shocked. I think we'll be just perfectly fine with it. HHG says apparently the Raiders are split on whether to trade Max or not. Yeah, I know where that split's at. Spytek and Brady on one side and Carroll over on the other. Carroll and the defensive coordinator over on the other. Joe says our pass game with the way Sam VP is playing right now is very dangerous. Expect the run game to get better down the stretch. Oh, I agree. Especially watch what happens, Joe. The second that those boxes lighten even just a little bit, watch how the run game opens up. Rampazzi Raiders are going to waste Max's career on 17 rebuilds. Big facts. Dogzilla says, when will the Hawks announce who gets moved to make pace? Oh, as far as the roster goes, we should hear in pretty soon. They get a little bit, I think they get a 24-hour period when they're making a trade like that to make their decision. Nick says, to me, there's no point of Cup after the season, regardless of Shaheed. He's not very good anymore, and this wide receiver class is deep. Very well, we could be the direction they go here, Nick, where you're pivoting out one to the other on that. Cup has been pretty solid for you as a receiver this year. You haven't had a lot of targets heading his direction, and you don't throw a lot. You know, you're in the bottom third right now in the NFL in the passing attempts, and half your target share of the passing attempts in that bottom third are going to Cooper Kupp or going to Jackson Smith. There's just not a lot left over for anybody else right now. Well, do I think Gino's going to torch the Broncos Thursday? No. He just lost Jacoby Myers. You guys are going to paste him. Casey says, nice looking receiver. Yes, sir. Patrick, Rasheed Shaheed equals Deshaun Jackson 2.0. Yeah, kind of a lot of that similar thing. I think Deshaun's definitely a better player, but they both can do some similar things in getting deep. And in Deshaun Jackson, what offense was he playing within when he first started out with the Eagles there? Philadelphia Eagles and the West Coast offense. So yeah, some of the same principles you would use for within a Deshaun Jackson Eagle offense, you will see within Rashid Shaheed in this offense. Fun says Rashid Shaheed's an awesome punt returner too. He's got a couple of touchdowns, and Horton, we can protect from that spot. Maybe the way they go with this. It's possible. Horton's been pretty good with it too, man. He's got that 90-yard return. He's got a pretty high yard per attempt average, I think. Addis, no reports right now on Ernest Jones yet. They're still monitoring where his situation is. Still monitoring. Nick, is Haynes coming back soon? Bradford's hard to watch. He's supposed to be off IR. He's practicing now, and we'll see if he is able to knock Bradford off the starting spot or not. Kind of remains to be seen on that one. Not sure. Jeff says, I'm excited to see how the running game will look. Should look good, Jeff. Hopefully this peels a little bit of some of that heavy congestion down the line of scrimmage away a little bit. Eases up a bit of that pressure. Herbicide, do we know anything about injuries? EJ4? No updates on injuries right now, folks. Still waiting on some of the updates there. Charlie says the Colts are betting on Daniel Jones. Let that sink in. Oh, Lordy. That's true. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable. I know he's played great this year, but I'd be a little uncomfortable in that one too. Why you mad, bro? Rumors are Hawks tried to trade for Max Crosby again, but were denied again. Dumb Raiders, man. Dumb Raiders do dumb things. That's all I can say. Like, do I want Max? Yeah, I want Max, but I think it's a smart move for both teams to look to make that. And even if you want to move him to Seattle, move him somewhere. Max Bailey, Rashid Shaheed highlights are awesome. My God, he's fast. He's a legit burner. Orlando, if he knows Kubiak's system, is it safe to say he plays this weekend? I would think so. Yeah, Orlando. I think he comes in, plugs and plays. I mean, it's a rental move. You rent a guy short term. You want to, you're going to use it for all it's worth. Like, you want to get while the getting's good. DMK says Rasheed should be our special teams returner first and foremost. He might. Again, Torrey's done a really good job back there, but I know Rasheed's got a great track record of doing it too. Abdi, I'm so glad we kept Boye and Tariq. They both will be fine on defense, and Schneider cooked getting Shaheed. I'm happy with it too, man. Yeah, I like it. I like it too that you kept both of them. There wasn't going to be much value out there in trying to just salvage something for him. So hold on to it, ride with what you got. Bernard Boykins, as long as he doesn't drop the ball like he does sometimes, he's going to be great. Definitely need him to catch, man. Our guys have been so sure-handed this year, so it'll stand out if he doesn't. Joe, right guards were either not for sale or too expensive for John Schneider. It could be John Schneider has his eyes on some O-line guys entering the draft. We got to keep the pressure on him there. Oh, we do. I will, Joe. I'm sure for about the 9th straight year, I will say at the forefront of what I want to attack this offseason, when I put my perspectives out there, it will be that I want to get making this offensive line of strength at the forefront. Let's go get ourselves a center and right guard that can complement what we got, and let's get to roll. Rampazzi, Brady Henderson said the offseason he does not expect Seattle to extend Woolen. Also, Adam Schefter said similar on Pat McAfee today. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the long-term guy here. Yeah, Nick, I don't think he's getting extended. They're going to ride him out for the final part of the year and let it go from there. Charlie says, "What was the best trade this deadline?" Boy, it wasn't a lot of deals. I think I like from the Jets' perspective getting 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. I know the Colts are probably going to be good this year, and that first-round pick might not be good this year, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we come back and see that the Colts are having like a one-off, and we come back around next year and the running backs kind of run to the end of the line and they have a bit of a down year. The rest of that division takes a bit of a step forward. And now suddenly maybe they've given them a top 10 pick in the draft there for the year after. I think I like that a lot from a Jets perspective and their approach there, and that they recognize where they're at as a team to make that move, especially when you have the Quinnen Williams on top of it. I think this is what teams that are rebuilding should do. Yes, we're probably the fastest team in the league. We're gonna be hard to beat. We got some guys that can fly. Yeah. Yeah. Horton's fast. Arroyo is blazing fast for a tight end. Kenneth Walker's fast for a running back. You got the speed. You got the need for speed. Riley Largent, my grandpa is loving this season. Let's go, Riley. Shout out to the Largents. Always glad you are, you're part of royalty in here, Riley. That's the way this works. So part of royalty coming in here. And I know he knows it, but he is absolutely revered as ever in this fan base. And even for those old suckers like me that were around back in the beginning stages of this franchise, it was a real treat being able to watch him every weekend when you had a lot of times not always the best of Seahawks teams, but he was just so much fun to watch. Hella much love out here at the Hawks Nest. And that jersey will always be on this. As long as I'm streaming, Riley, as long as I'm live, as long as I'm doing what I'm doing, that jersey's always going to be a centerpiece component on this backdrop. You better believe it. A lot of other stuff might change, but that's never going anywhere else. Appreciate you. I'm glad to hear Steve's liking it too. That's awesome. I know he likes this brand of football. Charlie says, overall, what the hell were the Cowboys doing? They aren't winning at all this year and holding out draft picks like candy and handing out draft picks like candy. They're the team, one of those teams that ultimately, as I talk about the Jets recognizing we're in the right spot and making the right moves off of where they're in this spot, and the Raiders not doing that. Cowboys are another team that just doesn't do that either. They never really know where they are organizationally. They're always trying to talk themselves into the dream. And when you watch that team last night, they said it on the telecast. I agree with it. You don't look at the Cowboy team and say they're one player here away from getting this done, making this happen. And go, yeah, you just get this one guy in here and they'll solve all the issues you got gone problematic here. You got issues at probably all three levels of your defense. That's why you give up 1 million points every week. But they can't help themselves. Jerry's never been able to help himself of just owning up on a bad year, eating it, moving this along down the line a little bit. He just can't do that. He just doesn't operate that. I have to think some of the father time leaning on his back is pushing this a little bit, but doesn't make it the right decision. And the Cowboys, I don't really like what they're doing on this. It speaks more to a desperation than a vision. William says perhaps John Schneider sees Riley Mills as our 5th round pick in 2026. Maybe he was a 4th, William, so he would see him as a 4th round pick. But I think you're right. I think the team does view this way. It's part of why you took Riley as you took him. Is like, look, we're stacked up. We have so many picks in this draft. We can take a pick that we got a guy that's going to be IR'd for the year, and we're just kind of keeping him on that IR as we get through the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he potentially just didn't get activated at any point this year, just because they're kind of holding him for that reason a bit, and they don't need him as much. Max says Dolphins just fired their GM, so it's kind of awkward for them to trade stuff. It is a little bit of a weird situation, especially the timing was weird with the GM. Maybe at least wait to get through the trade deadline, but maybe they're like, we don't want him touching anything else. Don't you dare. Nick says Dolphins are a bad organization. That's why some stay bad. Same with Cleveland, Cincinnati, the Jets. Amen, man. They're bad for a reason, not for accident, not because they're cursed. Fun says, can everyone here have a bouquet of crow on the Sam Darnold slander, wanting Milroe to start the preseason, and Sam Darnold is playing the best quarterback that any other Seahawk ever have? IMO. Well, definitely not me, Corona, because I was on board. I was all on board Sam Darnold. I was trying to tell him, man. I was trying to tell him preseason Milroe's not going to, this ain't happening. Shane Germany says, I think all the talk of Crosby, Hendrickson, Garrett coming to Seattle was never really a reality. He was needed, but don't think Mike McDonald wants to upset the team culture. Very possible, but that's the bottom line to this as well. Jason James, Crosby wants to stay in Vegas. It's obvious he's not ready to go yet, maybe in the offseason. Could be that he pushed this down. I have to think he's probably just about getting to the point where he's ready to call it a day, but we'll see on that. Yeah, Riley, Gino definitely hit a wall. Nick says, don't want to trade him. We could still win 9 games, quote unquote, says Pete Carroll. You know he's thinking it. You know Nicky's thinking it. Williams said the Jets could be the Oklahoma City Thunder of the NFL by acquiring tons of draft capital and contend within 3 years. Agreed, William. That's why I love what they've done, man. I came up with this theory a few years ago, and I tell you, there's been nothing that's been disproving it since going through and watching and kind of thinking about it. Teams find themselves in 4 different states. You're rebuilding, you're ascending, you're stuck in purgatory, or you're elite. And you don't go from rebuilding. You don't go ascending. You don't go from rebuilding, ascending, purgatory, elite. The way it goes is you go rebuilding, ascending, elite. What happens is on the road to trying to become elite, you take that detour and you end up in purgatory. And you got to recognize which of those 4 places that you land in, because you get a team like the Cowboys who are truly in purgatory, but think they're kind of like on the edge of being elite. So then they make a bunch of decisions that are driven by their thinking of that we are maybe kind of elite. It's why it's got to be so important for you to make sure you're characterizing yourself properly, because you will make the wrong decisions, and you'll make a lot of them when you can't really realize where you're at as a team and what you're doing. Michael Bicknell says it'd be awesome to see Cup retire after this year and then come back to the coach, the Hawks, and train these young receivers we have. That would be pretty cool. I don't know if he'll be interested in coaching, but that would be cool if he was. CRB, are these players, are there players we missed to make a move today? You already know you would target free agency. I don't think any of the linebackers available are long-term, but JPJ, Sweat, Zeitler would still be on my radar. JPJ and Sweat are still under contract, so they're not really free agents on that side of it there, CR. And it's always a little bit hard right now at the moment to quite look at the free agents because there's still the restricted tags, the franchise tags, there's the extensions that happen in the NFL after the year prior to the free agency. And so you could be looking at guys right now that might look like they're going to become available who just aren't. And it becomes a bit of a fool's errand to try to target which ones and won't be because it's very much up in the air right now, when it comes to that. There's nobody right now that I'm looking at in free agency necessarily to go out there and attract. Zeitler is a free agent, but he is going to be about 37 years old. I think he's probably going to be on the edge of retiring by the time you get him to that point. You're probably going to want to look for a younger, more long-term option there if you are going to try to grab that guy. So those guys could be guys we're looking at to maybe trade for after the year, but not free agents. And we'll see how active they're going to be in the free agent market in general terms too. On top of that. Dio says, hello, who needs more defense when you can have more offense? Amen. The best defense is a great offense, as they say. Max says, Jets are loaded with draft picks. Good thing they are so good at drafting, right? Oh, that's true. They do struggle a little bit with that one. Shane, when are people going to realize Carroll talks S and he's a football? Shows that fit the past 5 years at least. I think a couple words got left out there, Shane. Slobby 1, Cowboys winning that Parsons trade now. Maybe. I think it's a trade that probably was a win-win for both teams rather than it being a clear, this team got the win or that team got the win. Quinn Williams is a good addition. Him and Ryan Clark will be nice inside. You got a first-round pick and Quinn Williams essentially in a lot of ways for Micah, which is cool. I think it's all right there on that. But again, this more comes down to with the Cowboys just knowing that same lane I'm talking about that you're operating within, and the right time to make moves for guys like 27 going on 28 Quinn Williams, and whether your team's really ready to utilize that to the utmost or not. Max says, like the stream. If you like the team, let's go. Please do hit that like button if you guys get a chance from me, folks. I would really appreciate it as it does help this channel. We got to kind of start to put a button on this one. So I'm going to get to a couple of donations here, and then I've got to bounce over to do the roundtable here with Mike. So we're going to go ahead and get the last couple donations in here, and then we'll probably bounce on out here. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. That Falcons-Rams pick is looking high. Now, they're one of those ones on draft day. People were wondering why I was getting so mad about it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting so mad about it because you just gave the Rams a top 10 pick and probably the pathway to their next franchise quarterback after Matt Stafford. That's annoying to me. I want them to have to work for that quarterback. I want them to have to seek high and low and go into the mines and go into the sewers. I don't want you just to put them on their plate, be like, no, here you go. Here's a 4-course meal of another quarterback. Luckily, at least, thank God, Jeffrey, his quarterback class doesn't look to be particularly good. But I mean, what if they threw a couple of their first rounders and another first rounder at the Bengals right now? This could get a little bit dirty. That's all I'm saying. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. Jeffrey, appreciate the back-to-back donos, man. Colts dealt 2 firsts for a cornerback. That's not going to work out well for the sorry players who get drafted by the Jets or the Colts. Whatever, though. I wouldn't have done the deal in any way. I like the Colts' aggressiveness, and I like that they're going to try to strike while the iron's hot this year, and they're having a year like they haven't had in many years. But Ahmad's not worth that, and he's not cheap still on the other end of this, to the side of that, and just it's a lot to give up for a guy that doesn't really take away the ball at the cornerback position. Maybe he covers really well and he tackles all right, but it's not exactly like he's going to even take the ball away. I don't know. That's a little bit too much for me as well there, Jeffrey. And you're probably right. Mine not working out for either two teams when it's all said and on that one. Megan Roger coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you, Megan, for the big $20 drop. I appreciate that. Very kind. As always, very kind to the channel here. Greetings, y'all. Just woke up and I'm prepping for a meeting from my work, and I love what I'm seeing for the trade. Wasn't on my bingo card, but I'll take it. By the way, we'll be late for the roundtable, so give them hell until I get there. I got you, Megan. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a little bit spicy tonight on the old roundtable. So I'm getting ready with my sword and shield, and we're going to go out today and get after it with these boys and see what's what. So thank you for the $20 dono. It's good to see you in the house tonight. And yeah, we're going to have some fun on the roundtable tonight, but a great trade, Megan. I can't really see much of a downside to this one at all. Not really that much draft compensation. We're talking about day 3 picks. I'm not going to get over the moon with that. It doesn't hit you much cap wise. We're still going to be able to roll a lot of this cap space we have sitting on the books into next year. And you never know. May not even be a rental. Maybe a move that we end up, signing this guy to an extension when it's all said and done. So there's even more further upside to this deal down the line if that were to be something that does happen with it, where it's not the rental and now you're getting a Rashid Shaheed for a 4th and 5th round pick. But a great deal. I think the Hawks are trying to be active in other areas too, Megan, but this was just the one that you could get done. So you did what you could, and it helps the team out. And he's going to be a problem. I was saying on Twitter, Megan, keep stacking those boxes at your own peril now. At your own peril. Thank you, Megan. John Naylor, thank you for the $5 donation. Brando, waiting for the roundtable tonight, and the Darnold deniers start talking up Daniel Jones as you scream in pain. Yeah. It's going to be a bit of that. And then there's going to be the Walter Nolan guys where, they're going to try to do a little bit of the, cloak and dagger stuff on me, where I know I'll keep Brandon from talking about Sam Darnold. I'll just bring up his Walter Nolan take. There's going to be a little bit of that going on too there, John. That's okay. I'm ready tonight. I'm ready for what's coming. And I got to feel like they all are going to have a little bit of a pall hanging over some of the proceedings with especially the Niners and the Rams as they say, oh, hey, we got Keon, this inside outside edge guy here for the Niners. Woo, 6th, 7th round pick. Woo. Oh, the Rams. I got me some Roger McCreary, his slot guy that'll maybe barely play a little bit here. Woo. And the Seahawks go out there and get Rashid Shaheed. Which of these ones is not like the others? And then you got the Cardinals doing jack diddly squat because that's just who they are. Yeah, I think I'm going to be feeling pretty good on the roundtable tonight, John. I think I'm going to be feeling pretty healthfully confident on the roundtable this evening. Jeffrey, thank you again, man. Jeffrey coming in with the 3rd donation. Thank you so much for that, Jeffrey. You are awesome, brother. He says, let's not all drink the Kool-Aid. We kicked the crap out of the AARP Commanders. We're not postseason contenders until we beat the Rams and the Niners. I think it's a fair outlook, Jeffrey. I think in all ways it's a fair outlook, in that this team has, not just this year, of course, but in the last couple prior years, when you've had to face truly good teams of those seasons, truly teams that were going to be playoff-like contenders of those seasons, you've not really been able to stand toe-to-toe with those teams. And even if you get the win like a Lions game a couple of years ago, it's a score-origami game where you got to score on every single possession to win the game. And so that's one of the things I'm watching for as we go through the rest of this year. We don't have necessarily a ton of those type of tests on the schedule. You've got the Titans out there that you're going to be dealing with. You got a couple of other easy games in there, or relatively easy games in there, but you do have the Rams twice. You do have the 49ers. You do have the Colts. You have some tests here to see if you can finally take that last measurable step to contending status. And I feel like, yeah, if you were to lose the Rams twice and maybe the 49ers, you beat them at the end of the year, but they're all beat to hell and they're nowhere near what the top of the roster was at the start of the season. And then, maybe you kind of beat the Colts, but we don't know what the Colts will really be once we get in the playoffs. I agree. I don't think that exactly is going to push, even if you then get in the playoffs, a ton of confidence from you or I that this team is ready to then be that team for this particular year. Yeah, you're a playoff team then. Yeah, you're a good team then. But we're all looking for when we can move to that next step, to your point of how do you get to actually that contending point? How do I have the confidence that we're ready to take that step to the contending point of things? And don't quite have it at this point. And I think it's valid as to why you don't have it for those said reasons. So we'll see what they do. And hopefully they build up to this year in that Rams game. And those Rams games coming up are going to weigh so heavily in our minds for how much confidence we can have if we can get in the playoffs. Because it does look like right now the probability rate's super high for us to get in the playoffs. But can you actually take down the upper crust? Can you stand with the upper crust? They look like they're ready. They look like they've taken some of those steps to do so. But now we got to bring it home, right, Jeffrey? Now you got to bring it home. Thank you, man. Appreciate all of your donations today. I want to, if I can here, throw a quick shout out to the sponsor of this show. And the sponsor of this show is going to be, well, let me get over to my right. Let me go over the right thing here. There we go. Sponsor of the show is going to be Sleeper, the number one sports app in the game right now. And they have got more picks out there than just about any other one that I've ever seen these kind of apps. You get the overs, you get the unders, you've got basketball mixing with football, mix, match, put this one together with that one, and it all can work out beautifully, wonderfully for you. And when you use my code, they will match you up to 100% of your first deposit up to $100. So that's $100 from me to you in your pocket when you use the code NEST on your first deposit. They also have just a freebie 20. So if you just create a login, don't even need to use my code, you can get a free $20 into your account right now. So $100, $120 from me to you. And that's just when you use my code with a combination of that freebie account right to you on that side of it. So do take advantage today as you're out of fantasy, get back into the more of a daily fantasy thing here with them, get back on your horse, get back on your confidence. You can choose the over and unders. You can see last night I was able to hit on my picks here with the Cardinal game. So I threw down an over on 58.5 yards for Harrison, Jacoby Brissett over 245, and then George Pickens over 64.5. Bang, bang, bang. I hit on all of those picks. I've hit on more than a few. So that's what I'm talking about. They've got some really good individuals picks in there to where it's, some of these sites, they really narrow you down on like some real base picks that aren't good selections on the over and under. They actually do so here with Sleeper. Very much appreciated for them sponsoring this app. Please do utilize it today. Go win yourself some money. There are terms and conditions that do apply. Please do see Sleeper's app for details. Sleeper's app or site, I should say, for details. All right. We are going to put a button on this. I'm about 5 minutes away here from getting live with you guys with Mike, AZ Sports Fan. So we will put a button on this. Great discussion with you guys today. Make sure you're caught up on all the donos I did. Thank you to all the folks with all the support today on the channel. Love having a Largent in the house, Riley. Big shout out to you. Please do give your granddad a lot of love for me out here. And shout out to you guys for a great stream as ever. Thank you for hanging on with me with some of the technical difficulties early on today. I will be back in about 10 minutes with a Behind It Me Line session here with Mike. We'll preview this upcoming game, get his thoughts on Walter Nolan and the Cowboy performance last night. But until then, wait. Make sure I got everything right. Oh, yeah, we're good. But until then, please don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.